Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A quick reminder of our top stories now. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo sets to waive his immunity to legally clear his name of all allegations and insinuation against his person and office. National Assembly receives medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper from President Muhammadu Buhari with keen attention to global and domestic developments. Tonight, we'll continue a series on Nigeria's independence anniversary with a special focus on the country's power sector. And White House releases transcript of President Donald Trump's phone call with the Ukrainian president as Mr. Trump denies withholding U.S. military aid to Ukraine as leverage for trial involving Biden's son. For more information on our top stories and others, please visit our website. It's channelstv.com. youtube.com/channelsweb has videos of our shows. And as promised, we're now being joined on the news at 10 by the Chief Operating Officer of the Ibadan Electricity Distribution Company, Mr. John Ayodele. I want to thank you so much indeed for joining us on the news at 10. Some Nigerians believe this very clearly, that the privatization exercise was not properly done, that the companies that bought that assets were not technically competent or even having the financial wherewithal and the strength with which to carry on that sector, and it has today deteriorated. As an operator, what's your position on that view?
Thank you very much. The power sector was privatized properly, I think. It's just that there are some issues that the government made promises on, which were not adhered to. If you look at the power sector today, the main bone of the power sector is on funding. Funding is a major problem. There is no doubt that we don't need to bring angels from the sky to come and operate power system. I've been in that sector for over 40 years, so I definitely have an idea, and I've worked both in Nigeria and the US. So I definitely know what to do. But the fact is that the funding is a problem. And the funding is a problem because if you look at what they call MITO, which defines the way the tariff is made, the government had promises. For example, it was assumed that by 2016, the power generation in Nigeria will have reached about 5,000 megawatts. And the projection on the 5,000 megawatts was made in order to arrive at the cash flow that is required to actually manage 5,000. But we have never reached 5,000. So there is a tariff shortfall and there is a market shortfall. So all those shortfalls actually bring about a lot of stress in the funding, by which DISCOs will collect less revenue than what it is needed to actually manage the sector. So there's a lot of regulatory issues have been issued. I believe the present NAC officials are addressing that. But before then, it was a regulatory somersault. And that has not brought about the investment, the right investment required for the sector, because nobody wants to invest in a sector that is fund crashed on. So the major problem is revenue, not technical.
Okay,
there are
if I may come in here,
problems, hitches here and there, but that is not the major one. The major one is that of revenue flow.
Yes, let's talk more about this revenue, because it seems to create a lot of diversions and deviant views about how this is going on. We understand that the government at some point was giving some kind of funding to the generating companies. Is the government going about this the wrong way by funding the GENCOs as to the DISCOs?
I believe that what government was trying to do was realizing that there's a shortfall as a result of not meeting up certain obligations. The obligations of enough power to distribute, and that obligation made government to look at the fact that, one, if discos don't receive enough money in terms of collection, there's no way they can meet up the obligations of the GENCOs. You have to realize that GENCO's contract with MBET has a take-or-pay issue and has some issues that deals with forex. When the sector was privatized, the forex was at about 196 naira to a dollar. You know that at a point in time, dollar went to far above 400. Now it ranges around 350, 360. And that was a major problem. So when it was time, when the NEC people declared them, then it was obvious that we have issues. Because with them, all contracts must kick in and the contract obligations must be met. The tariff is such that the contract obligations could not be met. Even if discos collect 100% of the revenue, it will still not be sufficient. And I think that was why government felt if we cannot take tariff to a cost-reflective tariff, then there has to be some form of subsidy going in. And I think that is what government had done.
That's a good place to let it rest. Engineer John Ayodele, he is indeed the Ibadan operating officer, chief operating officer for that disco. Many thanks indeed for talking to us on the News at 10. President Muhammad Buhari has condemned the coup attempt in Ghana, stating clearly that days of coups and governments without votes are over. The president said in a statement that the only acceptable form of governance in the region is through democratic elections, and that it is the only way to install, as well as change, and an administration. The statement says that all Africans hold the nation of Ghana in the highest esteem as the first post-colonial country to gain independence and the first African country to hold multi-party elections by universal suffrage. He says that Ghana is the first true African democracy and that Nigeria will always support and show friendship to the country. President Muhammad Buhari also noted that when you take on powerful and corrupt vested interests successfully, sometimes they seek to push back. Noting that Nigeria and Ghana are leading partners in ECOWAS and the Transparency International and Afrobiometrics Africa Index 2019 have attested to the fact that both countries have recorded exceptional advances in the fight against corruption. You're watching the News at 10 on Channels Television, reaching you live from Lagos. Let's shift our gears now quickly, shall we, to our Abuja studios where Linda Akigbe is standing by to take us through a couple of more stories. Linda, looking good in your red dress.
Thank you, Gimba. Welcome to Abuja. The Federal Executive Council has approved a total of about 311 billion naira for construction of 3 road projects. The Minister of Works and Housing, Mr. Babatunde Fashola, told State House correspondents after the Council's meeting, presided over by Vice President, that 79.8 billion naira of the amount would be expended on the Ibadan-Ilesha-Ife dual carriageway. He noted that the Ibadan-Ilesha-Ife road project, when completed, would connect Oyo and Osun states. 2.96 billion naira was also approved by the council for the construction of a second phase of a Kano-Kastina dual carriageway starting from Gidan Mutundaya to Kastina Rolling Mill, Kastina. The minister also added that a sum of 200.176 billion naira was approved for the construction of link roads connecting the second Niger Bridge to Asaba and Onitsha. The House of Representatives Committee investigating abandoned projects in the Niger Delta is inviting past managing directors of the Niger Delta Development Commission over the huge number of abandoned projects and state of projects awarded in the region. The committee made a decision when the management of the NDDC, led by its acting managing director, appeared before it and revealed the number of projects abandoned. The committee further vowed to retrieve monies owed to the Commission and that of projects awarded but abandoned. Our correspondent Terry Ikumi reports.
The House of Representatives Ad Hoc Committee, which is investigating the abandoned projects in the Niger Delta, finally meets the management of the Niger Delta Commission, which had failed to honor its first invitation a week ago.
Nobody has communicated such letter to you.
The acting managing director of the commission begins by apologizing for her absence.
Please permit me to first render my very sincere apologies for my inability to appear earlier than today before this Honorable Ad Hoc Committee of the House of Representatives. This was neither intended to slight any of you nor demean this committee.
Then she presents a summary of the project and financial profile of the commission from 2008 to 2018.
Numbers of projects awarded, 9,820. Number of projects completed, 4,288. Number of ongoing projects, 2,645. Number of stalled projects, 342. Approved budgets, 2.8 trillion from 2008. Actual receipts, 1.8 trillion. Unlimited funds due NDDC through ecological funds, 60 billion.
But the lawmakers are not satisfied with the details of the report.
You said banking crisis of 2006, which led to revocation of what has the bank got to do with your activities?
Some of the contractors we had who gave mobilization that had an APG with them got into trouble. They couldn't access the fund. So that also stalled some of the projects.
It used to happen sometimes where the person might apply for further advances to help push the project forward. It is very possible. So I want to please allow us to go back, but I know that we have not paid this money on account of job done. No.
The injustices.
A community leader from the Niger Delta appears visibly upset.
What has been done to Become? What has been done to Bonny? What has been done to Soku? The gas producing areas from where they got hundreds of billions. I demand that as they go back, they then go and find, this all those places.
This honorable committee invites all past MDs, including the immediate one, the Executive Director of Finance and Project, to appear before this committee on Friday.
The committee says it is determined to retrieve all monies owed to the commission and that of projects awarded but abandoned. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
When the news at 10 returns, White House releases transcript of President Donald Trump's phone call with the Ukrainian president as Mr. Trump denies withholding U.S. military aid to Ukraine as leverage. That's an international scene with Around the World in 5. Join us again.